Municipal Government Act under 281AI, that the minutes are to be recorded in English language without note or comment.
Sorry, what was that?
The minutes of each council meeting are recorded in the English language without note or comment. There's a motion, and there's a, whatever the motion is, and then whether that's carried or defeated.
Okay, Councillor Wright.
Through the reef on those ones. So if you notice my comment, it just says, if not, wondering why not. Administration could easily, and if you do have any of these coming up where you find that it contradicts the Municipal Government Act, I would have hoped that, sorry, that administration would have just removed them entirely, because it was just me wondering, right? So,
And Mr. Members Council, that's actually the last one that,
Okay.
that went sideways with the MGA. So
okay. So then let's just remove that then altogether.
Okay, let's go on to number 5.
Actually, sorry, I did have a question though. Depending how that's interpreted, but is the procedure that the chair should have a reason, which would then be recorded in the minutes? That's what I read into this when I read it ahead of time.
through the chair, Mr. Members of Council, the MGA just says that you are to record the minutes without note or comment. So anything other than a motion and a decision of council would be considered commentary in the minutes. So if there was a point of order or a challenge to the chair, and then there was a reason as to why that was included in the minutes, that would actually be a comment in the minutes that would be not allowed. It's also, I should add, it's also something that Municipal Affairs is auditing these days under the MAP program, the Municipal Accountability Program. It's one of the first questions they ask when they do an audit, when they look at minutes. Are you recording the minutes without comment? That is, that comes up in all the audits.
Great, but what I'm saying is perhaps it should read, challenges to a ruling of the chair shall include a reason for the decision and shall be recorded in the meeting minutes. Right, it was about precedence.
Mr. Members of Council, you can certainly add to your procedure bylaw whatever you would like, but that is not a motion nor a vote of council.
I threw that out for discussion. Would you like a motion? I'll make an amendment that where it says challenges to a ruling of the chair shall include a reason for the decision. And I think that's all we need.
Councillor Wright.
So the logic here is you just can't say no without informing the rest of council why the challenge was either successful or unsuccessful.
I just need some clarification from Mr. Hogan. The MGA, is it an absolute or is it a baseline guideline on some of these things? Like,
through the chair to council, if the MGA is silent on it, you would be you'd be governed by best practice, council bylaw, procedures, etc. But in this case, under 281, and the reason why I'll keep bringing this up, it's under the performance of major administrative duties. The Chief Administrative Officer must ensure that minutes of each council meeting are recorded in the English language without note or comment. It's fairly prescriptive to me, without note or comment. So there's a motion of council, and there's a carried, defeated, recorded vote. If that's recorded vote, I guess could be considered a comment, but that is actually dictated through the MGA. So it says, are recorded in the English language without note or comment.
would that be without administrative note or comment? Oh, it's kind of...
And again, Mr. Members of Council, you can put whatever you'd like into the procedure bylaw. I'm only suggesting to you that this is what the Municipal Government Act, Section 2081AI says. That is, I'm neither here to defend nor to promote the Municipal Government Act. I'm only telling you what it currently says.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Councillor Hanson.
So this is just about what happens around challenges to a ruling of chair, has absolutely nothing to do with minutes. So what we're saying here is that when the chair has a decision, he should say why, whether it's a yay or a nay. Seems reasonable to me.
Now, if we go into that, is that not in the procedural bylaw already anyway?
Sorry, so through the chair, through Councillor Hanson, so basically you're asking, you want the Reeve to state his reasons, but you don't want it included in the minutes, which is why you've removed the minutes portion?
Okay, I'm going to call a question.
Or maybe I'm mistaken.
You are.
Are the points or the challenging
I'm
of a
limiting the
chair?
debate right here. Councillor Hanson, that's enough. We've gone on this one, that's enough. Thank you for coming out. All in favor? Big turnout for that one. Councillor Comanche?
Opposed.
Opposed.
In favor?
Opposed.
Opposed?
Opposed. Opposed.
Opposed.
Opposed.
It fails. Okay, number 5.
That section 15(3) of bylaw C-7907-2019 be amended to read as, quote, makes committee appointments as required, including appointments of councillors, members at large, chair, and vice chair positions.
Seeing no discussion, Tyler, did you have?
Sorry, yeah, I was going to say on the last motion we voted on was just the amendment to Councillor Wright's original motion. So I think we got to go back and vote on the original motion by Councillor Wright.
Yeah, I think you're right. Sorry about that. Have you got the original motion right there? Okay, we'll call that question as well. All in favor? And we don't even need a recorded vote. It's just, we'll move on. Amendment number 5.
Do you want me to read it again? That section 15(3) of bylaw C-7907-2019 be amended to read as, quote, makes committee appointments as required, including appointments of councillors, members at large, chair, and vice chair positions.
Seeing no discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? And recorded vote. Councillor.
Opposed.
Opposed.
Approved? In favor?
Opposed.
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 In favor.
Oh, in favor.
And that fails. Number 6.
That section 15(3)(a) bylaw C-7907-2019 be amended to read as, quote, when a councillor is appointed to a council committee, council must appoint a councillor as chair and vice chair.
Seeing no comments, all in favor? And, sorry, recorded vote again. Councillor Comanche.
Opposed?
Opposed.
In favor?
Opposed.
Opposed?
Opposed. Opposed.
Sorry, in favor.
Opposed.
And that fails. Amendment number 7.
Section 17(1)(2) of bylaw C-7907-2019 read as if only, quote, if only one nomination is received for the position of Reeve or Deputy Reeve, the nominee shall be declared elected by acclamation. If more than one nomination is received for the position of Reeve or Deputy Reeve, an election shall be conducted by secret ballot using the following exhaustive ballot procedure. If no councillor receives a clear majority of votes on the first ballot, the councillor who received the least number of votes shall be dropped from the ballot, and a subsequent ballot shall be conducted. And on any subsequent ballots, the councillor who receives the least number of votes shall be dropped from the ballot until a councillor receives a clear majority of votes.
Ms. Satink, could you tell us what the difference is between this one and what's written?
To you, Mr. Chair, the only difference is in the initial proposition that we wrote, we used the word is, and Councillor Wright is changing it to the word shall. That's the only change.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor? Recorded vote, Councillor Kissel, we'll start there.
In favor.
In favor.
Opposed.
Opposed?
In favor?
In favor.
Opposed. And that one fails. Number 8.
That a new section be added after section 19 in bylaw C-7907-2019 that reads, quote, "A person elected under the Local Authorities Election Act, RSA 2000, Chapter L21, unless otherwise disqualified from remaining in office, holds office from the beginning of the organizational meeting of the elected authority following the general election to immediately before the beginning of the organizational meeting of the elected authority after the next general election."
Sorry, Mr. Hogan?
Thank you, Mr. Members of Council. If Council were to choose or to go with this amendment, the only thing I would suggest is new councillors actually are not councillors at the beginning of the organizational meeting. They're actually not councillors till they're sworn in at the first organizational meeting. So I would just suggest if you elect to go with this amendment, that possibly should be clarified.
Councillor Wright, do you wish to amend?
So to amend it to read until hold on, from the begin, until, holds office when he's sworn in?
That's correct. The councillors are not councillors until they swear the oath, which is usually 20 minutes into the first organizational meeting, but not at the beginning of that meeting. So when they attend that first meeting,
Okay.
they're still not a councillor until they're actually sworn in.
Holds office from when the counselor is sworn in at the organizational meeting? Can we
Correct.
say that? Okay. Can we say that?
Councillor Wright, did you have something? Sorry? So again, I gotta ask, what are we gaining here?
Can I speak for a sec? Okay,
Yeah,
so
go
all the
ahead.
rationales were there, and so I sent these questions through, and my understanding was that the amendments that they've proposed, that were proposed by admin, were sort of vetted by admin. And so maybe we've assumed, maybe we should just put this on hold and have a look at it until September, and if administration is not comfortable with the recommendation, then just say no, or yes, or, you know what I mean, like one of those types of things.
Through the Reeve to Councillor Wright, administration is generally comfortable with, well, really it isn't administration that has to be comfortable for it. It has to be council that has to be comfortable with the amendments. The ones that, made us a little bit squirmy, Councillor, or Mr. Hogan already addressed those, and there are a couple more that I'll bring up as well. But, repeating the legislation is really what we've done here, and we have no issue with it. It's your bylaw. You decide what you want.
So basically what I did was I looked at the old one and compared it to the new one and where we were missing bits. And I understand that you're saying that it's council's document, but we should know it. It's just more if there's questions from the public or anything like that. So I didn't realize it was going to come in this format, but since it has and this is how we're going to do it, I'll just apologize, but we're going to be going through them all. So this just basically, just for rationale for moving forward, it's just basically to give a more fulsome document for looking at in the future.
Councillor McKeiler.
Thank you, through the chair. Actually, I was going to just pick up on what Councillor Wright said. What would be helpful is sort of, and again, because you can see that the Reeve is asking, what's the difference between this one and that one? And short of scrolling back, my bad, I didn't do this myself, but a table, like when we look at other stuff with a red line version, it's helpful to have the two side by side. So I actually like the idea of tabling this and having it put to us that way. And so that would be my recommendation, and I would be prepared to make a motion such to that effect. But we can discuss.
Now, you are making a motion? Oh, because Okay, Deputy Reeve Schul.
I really don't think we should be tabling this here. Let's either deal with it. I don't want to be going through this one more time. I think this is enough. I don't want to be wasting staff's time either. So I do believe everybody, whoever sent their, the information in, I believe staff had a look at it, and if they felt it was, good, they would have, I'm sure they would have recommended it, so.
Well, and I think for clarity, if I could, are the motions we're reading staff's motions or are they submitted motions?
To the Reeve, so the motions that I wrote for are basically Councillor Wright's. I took her suggestion and I formulated them into a motion. If there's any issues that we have, and if I can suggest, maybe I'll walk us through these one by one. Maybe it'll go a little bit quicker. If you're okay with that, Mr. Reeve.
We got Councillor, no, I guess we don't. Okay, yeah, that
Okay,
might
so-
help.
So we do have this matter on the floor. Administration, again, we're okay with the wording as presented, the motion as presented. It is a repeat of what's in legislation, so if it makes council comfortable, we're okay with leaving that one as is.
That'd be number 8. Okay, call the question. All in favor? I want to get out of here. Recorded vote.
Opposed.
In favor.
Opposed?
Opposed.
In favor?
Opposed. Opposed.
In favor.
In favor.
It fails.
So amendment number 9 is a suggestion to, you'll notice in the new procedure bylaw, we actually removed that council meetings are held on Tuesdays and that they begin at 9 a.m. and adjourn by 5 p.m. We removed it from the council, from the procedure bylaw to allow council the flexibility to decide the date at the organizational meeting. So council has had discussions in the past where they don't like council meetings on the Tuesdays after a long weekend. I think there's probably 4 or 5 that happen between GPC and council. So we left that out to allow you the flexibility at the org meeting to schedule your council meetings as you see fit. The time, same with the time, you know, I think there were some discussions that we start earlier. So we left it blank so that all these decisions can be made at the organizational meeting. So again, we are okay with the suggested motion that we crafted on behalf of Councillor Wright, but ultimately we would suggest leaving it as is.
I'm sorry, the one I have seems to talk about going past 5. For number 9?
Oh, sorry, am I missing this one? So yeah, it talks about they begin at 9 a.m. and shall adjourn no later than 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Unless a motion to proceed past that time. Sorry, you're correct. So administration did remove the 5 o'clock time limit as we did do a scan. Since council has been elected, we've always approved past 5 p.m. So why do we have that motion there? So we just removed it completely.
Okay. All in favor?
Mr. Chair, she hasn't moved the motion yet, though.
Oh, sorry.
That a new section be added after section 20 in bylaw C-7907-2019 that reads as, quote, regular council minutes shall be held in council chambers on Tuesdays beginning at 9 a.m. and shall adjourn no later than 5 p.m. unless council adopts a motion to proceed past that time. A motion to proceed past 5 p.m. should take into consideration Alberta's Employment Standard Code. B, should there be no motion to continue past 5 p.m., all remaining agenda items shall be added to the agenda at the next meeting if council is unfinished business. And C, if it appears that any unfinished business is urgent, the Reeve shall call a special meeting to deal with such matters.
Okay, call the question. All in favor? Okay, that one fails. We're moving on.
So we'll move on to amendment number 10, and I think we can skip this one because it's a repeat of what's in legislation. So, I mean, it's ultimately up to Councillor Wright. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So amendment number 11 and 12 is with respect to sections 27 and 28. Closed sessions shall include all members as long as the member has not abstained from the matter under discussion or is not required to abstain. And section 28, council or committee, as it considers appropriate, may allow other persons to attend the closed session. So the suggested wording is more clear, and administration agrees with the suggested wording.
Okay, so are we voting 11 and 12?
Yes, if Councillor Rice wants to move them.
Okay, all in favor?
Oh, yeah, she has to read them in, sir.
That section 27 of bylaw C-7907-2019 be amended to read as, quote, "Closed sessions shall include all members as long as the member has not abstained from the matter under discussion or is not required to abstain from participating in the matter under discussion." And 12, that section 28 of bylaw C-7907-2019 be amended to read as, quote, "Council or a committee, as it considers appropriate, may allow other persons to attend closed sessions. When other persons attend closed sessions, the meeting minutes shall record the names of those persons and the reasons for their absence. And the reason for their attendance." Yeah, thank you.
All in favor? Makes sense. Not unanimous. Councillor Kissel.
In favor.
In favor.
Favor.
Opposed.
Favor.
Opposed. In favor.
In favor.
Favor. That one is carried. And number 13.
So amendment number 13, and please, Councillor Wright, if we misinterpreted any or suggested motions, just let us know. Section 197, sub 5 of the Municipal Government Act provides at the end of a closed session, any members of the public who are present outside the meeting room must be notified that the rest of the meeting is now open to the public, and a reasonable amount of time must be given for those members of the public to return to the meeting before it continues. Our procedure bylaw, that as we suggested, it doesn't include this. So the suggested motion indicates that we give a reasonable amount of time, and if council can define what that means, and my suggestion is perhaps 5 minutes, that we let the public know that we're out of in camera. So the suggested motion is what administration agrees with.
Okay. All in favor? Oh, geez. I'm in a hurry here. Go ahead. Councillor
13,
Wright.
that a
Sorry.
new section be added after section 28 in bylaw C-7907-2019 to read, quote, "After the closed meeting discussions are completed, any members of the public who are present outside the meeting room must be notified that the rest of the meeting is now open to the public, and a reasonable amount of time must be given for those members of the public to return before the," do you want me to say, or, and that 5 minutes? Or, so if we can amend that, Tyler, please? And that 5 minutes be given for those members of the public to return to the meeting before it continues?
Okay. All in favor? Recorded vote?
In favor.
In favor.
Opposed.
Opposed?
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
Opposed. In favor.
It's okay. It fails. Oh, jeez. Okay, it passes. I'm in. Good. Number 14.
Amendment number 14 is with respect to the Chief Administrative Officer waiving the 48-hour notice at his or her discretion. And administration has no issues with this suggestion.
So currently, they don't, there's no provision for that, so I just thought it'd be important that if somebody broke their leg or something, that the CAO be able to make that decision. So that a subsection A be added to section 32 of bylaw C-7907-2019 to read as, quote, "The Chief Administrative Officer may waive the 48-hour notice at his or her discretion."
Okay. All in favor? Recorded vote, start with Council Kissel.
In favor.
In favor.
Opposed.
In favor?
Opposed. In favor.
In favor.
In favor. And that is carried. There, number 13, can we call that question again? I think that one failed. Well, I'd like to call the question again. Councillor Camachi.
So which one was this?
13.
So look at how I voted. I think I was in favor.
In favor.
In favor. Opposed.
Opposed?
Opposed.
In favor.
In favor.
And that is carried. I apologize. Mr. Hogan.
Mr. Reed, members of council, it doesn't matter because it had the same, but under the procedure bylaw, there is no calling for a second vote after a decision has been rendered by council. But the decision was the same, so it really doesn't matter.
Does that mean I don't have to go to prison?
Correct. Prison is off. Is not
Good.
today.
Number 15.
So section 15 and 16 kind of go, amendment 15 and 16 go hand in hand, and we agree with Councillor Wright's suggestion. Basically, section 34, as it reads now, it says members participating in a meeting through electronic means, pardon me, read wrong one. Unless the entirety of the meeting is being conducted through electronic means, the chair must be physically present at the meeting and cannot chair the meeting through electronic means. So we agree, and we suggest that we remove the first wording and that section 34 be rewritten to read as the chair must be physically present at the meeting and cannot chair the meeting through electronic means. So basically we took off that very first sentence.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry. That section 34 of bylaw C-7907-2019 be amended to read as, quote, "The chair must be physically present at the meeting and cannot chair the meeting through electronic means." And that section 35 of bylaw C-7907-2019 be amended to read as, quote, "Only as many members as are supported by the system's capacity up to a maximum of 3 may participate in the meeting through electronic means at the same time."
You can only have one motion at a time. I'm sorry. We can't do two at a time.
Apology.
We'll call a question on number 15. All in favor? And recorded vote.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor?
Opposed?
In favor?
Opposed?
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
That is carried. Can you reread number 16, please?
Sorry, I sure can. That section 35 of bylaw C-7907-2019 be amended to read as, quote, "Only as many members as are supported by the system's capacity up to a maximum of 3 may participate in a meeting through electronic means at the same time."
Thank you. All in favor? Recorded vote. Councillor Kissel.
In favor.
In favor.
Opposed.
Opposed?
In favor?
Opposed?
In favor?
Opposed.
In favor?
That's carried. And number 17.
Amendment number 17, so section 37 gives the authority to kick someone out of a meeting if they are participating electronically. Section 37 provides that the chair has the authority to end the use of electronic means if the electronic means is disruptive to the meeting, is not secure, or is not appropriate. Let's say you're sitting at Pizza Hut, participating electronically, and it's noisy behind the scenes. So that was the intent of section 37.
So, and the projected vote is going to be, or motion is going to be to delete it?
If Councillor Wright would like to remove the authority of the brief to kick someone out of a meeting, she can move that motion.
Mr. Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Reed, members of council. I've had personal experience with this in 2 different municipalities. The intent, I don't believe, is the disruption is not specifically a councillor, but I believe that the intent is if there's a poor internet connection, it is highly distracting to everybody if a person was in and out on the television screen. And that's really the point of this, is if the electronics are not working, if the chair has no ability to ask that person to shut her down and go home or go back to the pool for the day, it can be very disruptive to a council meeting when internet is on and then off and on and off. And the municipal clerk also talked about inappropriate places. I can tell you from personal experience, having seen an electronic meeting where the Pabst Blue Ribbon sign, the blue and red neon sign, was over the councillor's head while they were joining a council meeting electronically for all of the world to see is also. So I think I would recommend that the chair have some discretion being able to turn off the TV as it may be.
Thank you. Councillor Hanson.
My question through the chair for Ms. Satink is, did you ponder any wording just to tighten it up a bit to make sure that it was evident that it was either A, technical, or B, location-specific reasons, and not, say, councillor behavior, just to stop this from being abused for the wrong purpose.
Just go ahead and make an amendment.
Can you bring up section 37 of the bylaw, Tyler? Now that I read that again, it's fine as written.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. Let's move on to 18.
Section 18, Amendment 18 refers to Section 39, Sub 2. We do post the agendas to the county's website, so I think we can skip this one.
Good.
Amendment 19 denotes Tuesdays, yet as per the comment, Tuesday prior only works if council is always on Tuesdays. So the suggestion, and we agree with Councillor Wright's suggestion, that Section 43 of the bylaw be amended to read as the Chief Administrative Officer distributes council agendas to council no later than 7 days prior to each council meeting. It really ends up being the same thing.
Councillor Wright.
Yeah, my concern on this one was if we didn't hold council on a Tuesday, if it was to change, then you'd have to change the procedure bylaw. So 7 days just gave you that flexibility. If we decided we weren't going to hold it on a Tuesday, we were going to have it on a Wednesday because of a long weekend or something. So that section 43 of bylaw C-7907-2019 be amended to read: the Chief Administrative Officer distributes council agendas to council no later than 7 days prior to each council meeting.
Thank you. All in favor? Recorded vote.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
Opposed.
In favor.
In favor.
And number 19.
Amendment 20 is very similar to Amendment 19, and administration agrees.
Yep, sorry.
Yes, so same rationale behind that the chief that section 44 of bylaw C-7907-2019 be amended to read, quote, the chief administrative officer posts council agendas on the county's public website no later than 6 days prior to each council meeting.
Okay. All in favor? Recorded vote. Councillor
In favor.
In favor.
Opposed.
Opposed.
Favor?
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
That is carried. And 21.
Amendment 21. So the existing bylaws provision provides for the municipal clerk to make copies of the agenda package and make them available to the public the Wednesday before a council meeting. So administration did remove this in the procedure bylaw because we do it anyways, and we didn't think it needed to be a repeat. And we actually also email whenever a resident calls in, because the dial-up connection for internet is poor, so they can't download the entire agenda package electronically. We'll just actually email them the applicable report. So we just left it out. We do it anyways as a matter of service.
Perfect. So on something like that, like I said, it was just a more of an ask as to what we're doing. So yeah, that's fine. Let's remove 21.
Amendment number 22 is with respect to the structure of council meetings. And Councillor Wright, I believe you're suggesting that we start public hearings at 9:15 and move afternoon meetings until 1 o'clock instead of 1:30. And administration, I have no comments. Maybe Mr. Hogan does on this one, but it's council's decision. Whatever you decide regarding scheduling is totally up to you.
So my rationale behind that was I've had a number of complaints about people who show up for D and J items in particular, and they think because they come after C that they're not going to be heard first thing in the morning. So I was thinking if we started public hearings right at 9, you start C1, or even 9:10 or something if you go through the agenda, and 9:15 you have a little bit of a buffer for somebody to arrive late. I think 9:15 was sort of where I was going. Then they start right away, and then we can get into public hearings instantly, and then they can leave and then go right into them again at 1, and then discuss the other items after. I don't know if there was any appetite for that. It was more of a question for administration to sort of get some feedback of them and then to put it to you guys to see what you thought.
Thank you, Mr. Reed, members of the council. Administration, we don't really, it's not a big issue to us either way. I would just suggest that you're only going to book one at 9:15, and after that, it all goes, it becomes just a matter of when something gets slotted in. The other thing, for some considerations, with the or with the newer procedure in the procedure bylaw for public hearing and scheduling a public hearing, council will actually have the ability to schedule a public hearing as part of the first reading, and you could even pick a time you wanted the public hearing. So you could say, we would like to, we'll pass first reading, we'd like to schedule a public hearing for January the 27th at 2 p.m. So you'll have that ability as well now with the change in the public hearing process to not only schedule it for a day, but you could also pick a specific time of that council meeting you'd like to have that public hearing. So we would certainly suggest, and I think the municipal clerk's office and the planning department would come and say, listen, we already have a public hearing scheduled at 1, we have one scheduled at 2. We'd suggest that you schedule this for January 27th at 3 p.m. and we can kind of look a little bit forward and maybe try to get things so they're, you know, there's obviously going to be overlaps or sometimes we'll be done early, but that's just something for council to consider as well.
Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, the other point to consider, depending where we end up in the fall, but the J items might be moved to a completely different venue, which would alleviate a lot of the subdivision angst that we were getting feedback on.
Councillor McKeiler.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm not sure this amendment actually addresses the point that Councillor Wright made, and this is, you know, we had a prime example today where E1 sat all day waiting for us to get to it because we started with some Ds and then we went to Cs and then we came back to Ds and so then we jumped to some Js, and so, which is totally fine. And it's 9:15 and we're still here. So I'm not even sure that changing the times of the public hearing actually addresses that unless we limit debate on public hearings and we say that they will take place from 9 until 11, full stop. And then they take place from 1 until 3, full stop. And that A, B, and all the other items happen in the right order in between that. So as the amendment is currently written, I will not be supporting it because I don't believe it solves the problem.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
I agree with Councillor McKeiler. I don't think that this solves the issue. It was more just to, again, have a discussion about this, and maybe it's something that should come back if we're looking at the Municipal Planning Commission, and or the other thing that could just be put on the agenda maybe would just be a little caveat that says may not be heard in order and subject to, if you know what I mean, if there's just an education piece in the meantime. I don't know if that can be done, but it's, again, just to alleviate. And yeah, thank you, Councillor McKeiler, to that point where that gentleman did sit here all day for any item. We sort of overlooked that. So maybe we should come back to this one and not really table it, but maybe as a council have another discussion on it later.
I was going to suggest we can always amend our procedure bylaw, just a one-off later in the fall after we've thought about this. The other point I'd like to make, just so you can think about it, is part of our strategic plan is to improve our customer service, and the people sitting in the audience waiting for the public hearings are actually our customers. So it's probably far easier to jig the administrative stuff around and provide good service to the ratepayers and the developers.
Thank you, Mr. Reeve, members of council. I would agree with that sentiment. Staff can wait. Ratepayers are first. The other thing I would suggest is, and I have not heard it discussed since I've been here, there is no legislative reason why you go from a public hearing to the rest of the readings. A public hearing can be held at one meeting and the rest of the debate for council on the actual motion or the bylaw can be held at a later date. And in many cases, I would suggest that that's probably wise to wait a couple of weeks and some thought over what just took place at a public hearing. And that would also speed up some of the meetings as we go from the public hearing directly into the debate of the matter. So those are tools that council has available to them through the meetings to determine how your meeting is going. I would suggest that maybe some discussion about even our lettering system. Maybe the staff items should be the J items as opposed to the D items. Maybe we should schedule public hearings first thing of the day, and then go to the other things that impact the residents, and then finally to later in the day to the staff presented items, such as the D items that we did late today. That I would suggest that might be something that we could do as well.
Maybe let's just leave this one then and discuss it. We can do it a discussion at lunch, basically, and go through this and come up with a better process, better system. I agree that there's room for, I feel bad for people that sit there all day and nobody noticed him. So that's just not right. Okay, so we're going to leave 22 then?
Yep.
23,
So before we move on to 23, I'm going to slip in section 55 because it relates to section 56, which Councillor Wright has indicated as well that may not fit. So section 55, as it reads now, is when a notice of motion is read into the record, administration will provide a report in response to the notice of motion at the meeting that the proposed motion is scheduled to be considered. So administration is recommending that that be changed to read as, when a notice of motion is read into the record, and only when a resolution has been passed by council directing administration to prepare a report in response to the notice of motion, administration shall provide a report in response to the notice of motion at the meeting date that the proposed motion is proposed to be considered, as per the specifics in the notice of motion. So basically what we're looking for is when a notice of motion is read into the record, council needs to give us a direction to provide a response, rather than a response being automatic.
okay. Mr. Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Members of Council. Just several of our neighboring municipalities use a similar notice of motion procedure that we do, but they all, staff waits for council direction before they go out and write a report. I'll give you a really, I'll give you a crazy scenario. Somebody wants to put a nuclear waste facility in Bearspaw. So councillor comes with a notice of motion. The way our current system is, staff would go out and write a report. And we'd come back to council in 2 weeks with a report, which council would immediately throw out the window, wasting several hours of staff time creating this report. It would be much better for us in terms of our allocation of staff resources is if council said, you want to do what? And council and the rest of council just voted down the idea that there would be some kind of crazy development in a particular area that a councillor was presenting a notice of motion for. Now, if council wants to go ahead with it, then we'll certainly go ahead and do exactly the same work we would have done, but it just saves staff allocation of resources on notice of motions that may or may not go anywhere after we've spent some time and energy preparing a report.
Good advice. Councillor Hanson.
Mitigating that a little bit is you need 2 people at least to put the notice of motion about nuclear disposal facility in Bearspaw.
Oh, I could say something, but I won't.
And I can see now that the rumor's flying that somebody will watch this tape and go, council deliberated a nuclear waste facility in Bearspaw.
Yeah, prepare yourselves, Bearspaw, it's coming.
So, may I get some clarification on this, and pardon me, it is late. So, when it's read into the record, that's the first time, and then the second time, which is 2 weeks later typically, the only way it'll get a report is if a report's asked. Can you just go over that again, Mr. Hogan, please?
Mr. Members of Council, there's 2 ways you could do it. You could either vote on the notice of motion directing administration to come back with a report at that meeting, or you could wait what we're doing now 2 weeks and vote on it to have staff bring back a motion. The only thing we're looking for is we would like to have a motion of council directing us to bring back, and maybe even some very specific information that you'd like about a particular matter that was in the notice of motion. So just to vote on it, say, yeah, we'd like to go further with this, we'd like some more information, we'd like to do an investigation, as opposed to just the notice of motion, which currently directs us to run out and create a report. And we really don't even know from any discussion with council what that report should look like, because we're trying to glean from the notice of motion what our report should say. So just a motion to council with a notice of motion directing us to do something, or saying forget about it, we're not interested.
So, section 55 as amended, basically does that.
Yes, all it does is delay things. If you're in a real hurry, this might pose a bit of a problem, but I think I heard that you could actually vote for that resolution when the notice of motion is made. Is that correct, Ms. Sittink?
So I think the only thing that's going to be debated is whether or not council wants to hear more about this notice of motion. So if like, as I said, right now, the process is we automatically come back within 2 weeks with a report responding to your notice of motion. We're looking for direction from all of council, and the way I interpret it is the day of. So when you read in your notice of motion, it's seconded by someone else. If council agrees that they want a report from administration, they'll give us a further resolution telling us to come back with a report. So it's no longer automatic.
Right, because the way it is now, you read the notice of motion and no debate, no nothing, and we'll see you next meeting.
Yeah.
You can actually have a little bit of worthiness discussion and whether you want more information at the very first meeting. All right. Thanks for the clarity.
Okay. So we'll do, please.
That section 55 of bylaw C-7907-2019 be amended to read, quote, "When a notice of motion is read into the record and only when a resolution has been passed by council directing administration to prepare a report in response to the notice of motion, administration shall A, provide a report in response to the notice of motion at the meeting date that the proposed motion is proposed to be considered as per the specifics in the notice of motion."
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? And Councillor Kissel.
In favor.
In favor.
Opposed?
Opposed?
In favor?
Opposed. In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
That is carried. So 23?
So section 23, it does seem redundant, but it also doesn't. Administration recommends leaving section 56 in there, just so when councillors are preparing their notice of motions, depending on the complexity of it, that they consider the time frame for administration to respond.
I can't remember what it said because it's not up here, so I do apologize.
Sorry, section 56 states that when providing the date of the meeting pursuant to section 54 of this bylaw, the councillor should consider the agenda preparation and distribution deadlines for that meeting to allow administration time to prepare a report.
Yeah, I'm fine. Let's just skip on to 24.
Okay. Number 24?
Section 24 is just adding the wording, if possible, at the end of section 69. And section 69 states, if a member is unable to attend a meeting, that member must advise the chair of their absence and the reasons for their absence, and then adding comma, if possible. Administration agrees with this.
Yeah.
I think it's fairly self-explanatory. You can't tell somebody if you're dead. So that is section 69 of bylaw C-7907-2019 be amended to read as, quote, "If a member is unable to attend a meeting, that member must advise the chair of their absence and the reasons for their absence if possible."
Thank you. All in favor? And recorded vote again. Councillor Kissel.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor?
Opposed?
Favor?
Opposed. In favor.
Opposed.
In favor.
That is carried.
Amendment 25 refers to section 67. Again, it's adding some wording to include, so section 60, pardon me, we're on to section 73. Give me 1 second here. Oh yeah, sorry, 67(1) of our current existing bylaw has the words "a member who persists in a breach," and then section 73 of our new procedure bylaw has removed that. And Councillor Wright's suggestion is a member who persists in a breach of subsection 72 of the bylaw. The chair may request that the deputy reeve or committee vice chair move a motion to remove the unruly member. So essentially, she's just added the words "a member who persists," and administration has no issues with that suggested wording.
Okay.
That section 73 of bylaw C-7907-2019 be amended to read as, quote, "A member who persists in a breach of subsection 72 of this bylaw, the chair may request that the deputy reeve or committee vice chair move a motion to remove the unruly member from either the balance of the meeting or until the time provided in the motion. If the motion passes, the chair shall direct the member, so there's a typo there, shall direct the member to leave the meeting.
Thank you. All in favor? And recorded vote.
Opposed.
Opposed.
In favor?
Opposed.
In favor?
In favor.
Opposed.
In favor.
In favor.
That is carried.
And Amendment 26 is the same, so if Councillor Wright wants to read that one in.
That section 74 of bylaw C-7907-2019 be amended to read as, quote, if the chair persists to fail in following the provisions of this bylaw or of Robert Rules of Order, when necessary, a member may request that the deputy reeve or committee vice chair move a motion to remove the unruly chair from either the balance of the meeting or until a time provided in the motion. If the motion passes, the chair must leave the meeting.
Any comments? No? All in favor? And recorded vote.
Favor.
In favor.
Opposed.
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 In favor?
Opposed.
Opposed.
And that fails. Go on to 27.
So Amendment 27 deals with Section 78, and Section 78 states that council or the committee may by resolution permit a member of the public to speak on an agenda item. Members of the public who are permitted to address council or the committee have a maximum speaking time limit of 20 minutes, which may be extended by resolution. If I understand Councillor Wright's suggestion is that she wants to reduce it down to 5 minutes? Is that your suggestion? I don't have it on me, but I have it by email.
Councillor Wright, you're going to have to put your mic on.
Oh, sorry.
No, this was, I don't have it with me and I should have brought it. I do apologize. This was in response to, I think it's when somebody can respond or something, they have 20 minutes, but it wasn't about making a presentation at all.
For me?
The only, go ahead, Councillor.
Sorry,
Hanson.
through the chair, I believe when I read through this that what I was thinking is during a public hearing, the time limit is 5 minutes. If we have someone that just wants to speak to subdivision, we give them 20. Seemed kind of bizarre. They should be under the same rules of public hearing at that point, and I believe that was the intent of this amendment.
Technically, people shouldn't be speaking to subdivision. They should be in dealing with their
So your
council.
wacky counselors, approve it.
You could make a friendly amendment or even say no allowing to speak to subdivision. That was exactly what it was it pertained to, because you had 20 minutes. I'm like, why do you get 20 minutes for that when everyone else only gets 5? So that's the context. Thank you, Councillor Hanson.
Through the chair to
Councillor
council, I think the rationale for the 20 minutes was for public hearings, the applicants get 20 minutes to present a GPC. Presenters get 20 minutes to present, so I think it was just consistency on that part to keep it at 20 minutes.
Okay. Go ahead.
That's section 78 of bylaw C-7907-2019 be amended to read as, quote, council or the committee may by resolution permit a member of the public to speak on an agenda item. Members of the public who are permitted to address council or the committee have a maximum speaking time limit of 5 minutes, which may be extended by resolution.
I'll speak against this, but I'm going to vote for it because if I don't like the idea of people turning every item into a public hearing. But if we had a limit of 5 minutes, and I don't know if that's, actually, I'm going to change my mind there. I'm not going to vote for it. Inherently flexible or inflexible. Call the question. All in favor? And Councillor Comanche.
Opposed.
Opposed.
In favor?
Opposed.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
In favor.
In favor.
That fails. Number 28. Skip 28.
Yeah, we're going to skip 28 and move to Amendment 29, Section 88. Section 88 requires that if there are any technical difficulties with the live streaming, then an audio or video recording shall be used to bridge any technical difficulties. If the chair is going to have the sole authority to stop the live streaming, there should be a provision that has an audio or video recording for the remainder of the meeting. Administration, Section 88 actually says exactly what her suggestion was, so I think we could skip this one.
Counselor Wright? Through the
So
chair.
through the chair, my apologies. Should we not, it says that section 86 of the bylaw be deleted, so to delete that, we would need to have a motion, correct?
Yes, so if council, my suggestion, sorry, I probably wasn't clear, is that we do leave it, so that the chair has a discretion to to terminate the live streaming should an issue come up. So, I mean, it's up to you if you want to remove
Okay,
it.
sorry,
Okay. Number 30.
Amendment 30 is again changing words from may be displayed to shall be displayed. So administration has no issues with the suggested motion.
Sorry, Chair, I did have a question then on the previous
ahead.
one. We already have said that the chair can terminate due to technical difficulties or anything, behavior problems. Isn't 86 then fully redundant?
Through the chair to council, I think the idea of section 86 is more to do with the YouTube stream. If there's issues with the YouTube stream, like we record all of our council meetings, a hard copy, which is usually pretty consistent, but YouTube can kind of be sometimes iffy. So I think section 86 is to, if we're having issues with the YouTube live stream, we would cut the live stream, but we would still be recording the meeting with a hard copy.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, number 30.
So as I said, Amendment 30 is to change Section 105 to from may be displayed to shall be displayed. And council must decide this, and administration is indifferent.
Councillor Wright.
That section 105 of bylaw C-7907-2019 be amended to read as, quote, motion shall be displayed to council or committee prior to the vote on the motion, and the chair may request that a motion be submitted by a member in writing or electronically.
Isn't that what we do? Okay. All in favor? Councillor Comanche.
Opposed.
Opposed.
To be consistent with shells, in favor.
Opposed.
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 In favor.
In favor.
That fails. Number 31.
Section 31 is, Councillor Wright is suggesting that we define subsidiary and incidental motions, and we agree, so the suggested motions are identified there.
Councillor Wright.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure what they were sometimes, so I thought it might be helpful. So that section 107.1 of bylaw C-7907-2019 be amended to read as, quote, move a subsidiary motion which is applied to another motion for the purpose of modifying it, delaying, acting on it, handing its, is it handing or handling? Handing its consideration or disposing of it. That section 107.2 of bylaw C-7907-2019 be amended to read as, quote, move a privileged motion which relates to the rights or privileges of the organization or individual members rather than to particular items of business. They are of such urgency that they are entitled to immediate consideration. And that section 107.3 of bylaw C-7907-2019 be amended to read as, quote, move an incidental motion which are made in response to a variety of situations that may arise during the consideration of a pending question. They must be resolved before business can continue. They have no rank.
All in favor? Recorded vote.
In favor.
In favor.
Hopefully it'll shorten up meetings. In favor.
Opposed.
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 In favor.
In favor.
I believe that passes. Okay. And 32.
So Amendment 32, so there's a significant restriction on council's ability to speak to issues under debate. The existing bylaw provides for 10 minutes. The proposed bylaw provides only 5 minutes if there are no amendments. So with respect to this, there's a little bit of confusion. So administration is suggesting no changes be made. So section 128 of the proposed bylaw speaks to the time for debate when a motion has been made. So it's very specific that there's 5 minutes from the main motion 3 minutes for any amendments, and 3 minutes for closing. So that's when a motion has been moved. That time limit is specific. So if there's not a motion that's been moved and you're debating an issue, then you have the 10 minutes. And that's under section 67. So that's good. We'll move on for that one.
Okay, 33.
Amendment 33. So all of these should be defined somewhere in the bylaw. So I'm just going to move to section 129. Okay, section 129 is a new section that administration added, and we did add it as per our parliamentary procedure training that we had earlier this year. And I tend to agree that the wording that we used for section 129 as it sits right now, it doesn't always apply to us. The wording, actually, a lot of the wording in there doesn't apply to us at all. So the suggested motion, I did review a lot of our past motions and our practices. So the suggested motion that I have in the chart is more reflective of our actual practice. So administration recommends the suggested motion.
Yeah, I think the example I used there was, they used lay on the table, which we never use. We use motion to table, so I thought we should have the right language in there. So I'll read that. Administration, oh, sorry, Reva, you okay if I go ahead?
Sorry, go ahead.
Administration suggest, oh, sorry, sorry, it's moving. That section 129 of bylaw C-7907-2019 be amended to read as, quote, while a main motion is being debated and considered, no other motion may be made except for the following. 1, amend the motion. 2, amend the amendment to the motion. 3, refer the main motion. 4, table the main motion. 5, call the question. 6, move a motion which has privilege, that is. Do you want me to read?
Yep.
Number 33, 6A, a motion to recess. B, a motion to adjourn. C, a motion to set the time for adjournment. D, a point of privilege. That administration be directed to define the motions as listed in section 129 of bylaw C-7907-2019.
Councillor McKellar.
Thank you, through the chair. The only one that I think has some value here, and I can be talked out of it for sure, is if we go back, I think it's to limit debate, a time on debate. So I think, yeah, number 8, limit or extend, limit or extend limits of debate. I'm not sure that has to do with time, but that's what I think of. So I know we kind of talked about time limits before, but I think that it's, sometimes we can go on and on and on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to add that one back in then, so under here. So that while a main motion is being debated, I think we should be able to limit debate. So I think we should be able to make a motion to limit debate. So if, however that's worded in the previous one, I think it should be in here as well. So I'd like to make that amendment.
Could that be 6E?
Could be, or it's just number 7.
Or, yeah, call it number 7.
Number
Good
7.
idea.
Just add number 7 and say a motion to limit debate. Or extend, I suppose, too.
Okay, call the question on the amendment. All in favor? Councillor Komechi.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor?
Opposed?
In favor?
Opposed.
Favor.
In favor.
In favor.
That is carried. And we'll call, have you read the main motion? Yes, you did. Call the main motion. All in favor as amended. And Councillor Kissel.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
Opposed.
In favor?
Opposed. In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
That is carried. Thank you.
I think amendment 34 we can remove. We can skip that one.
Okay.
Amendment 35. So what is the logic for removing the ability for late submissions to be accepted by council? So this is referring to section 168 of the proposed bylaw, where we indicate no written submissions received after the advertised submission deadline will be accepted by Rocky County or provided to council as part of the public hearing. administration has noticed a change in council's voting habits with respect to late submission. So we did, and we also did research other municipalities to determine what their practices were. And our suggestion is that since you have been elected, there have been 41 council meetings that you've attended, and there's been 39 requests to accept late submissions. So it's a common theme. It keeps happening, but because your voting has changed, we made the suggestion that we just stop accepting written submissions, but ultimately it's up to council.
Okay, Councillor Wright.
Our voting has changed, but we always accept them. Of those 39, how many have we said no to?
None.
Okay, so, and again, I'm going to use Councillor Hansen's acknowledgement of customer service, and, you know, people are here and some people are away and they don't always get them in on time. If you go on vacation, you've got a short window to respond and you miss it because you're on vacation. I don't think that's fair. So I'm going to push forward for this one, that section 168 of bylaw C-7907-2019 be deleted and replaced with, quote, written submissions submitted after the advertised deadline or submitted during the public hearing by the author or spokesperson, along with 20 copies for distribution, may be accepted on a resolution of council.
Councillor Hansen. Oh, Mr. Hogan, sorry, he was first on the list.
Thank you, Mr. Members Council. The council decision doesn't really affect us in administrative one way or the other. I would suggest, however, that to make a decision on this based on your new public hearing procedure. So, for example, if we came to you with an application for redesignation for first reading at the next council meeting, you would choose the time and the date of the public hearing that would take place. So let's assume that there's something happening on September, the first meeting in September. You could set a public hearing for December for 2-3 months down the road, which would give the ratepayers plenty of time to get their submissions in on time, as opposed to the way we kind of do it today. And I do agree that the way it's being done now, sometimes the time frames are a little short, but council would have that option to choose a public hearing date far enough down the line that late submissions could be viewed by council as just someone who just didn't get in on time.
Thank you. Councillor Hansen.
I was going to make that comment, but my other comment is it'd also be nice to have some discussion about how you stop abuse of the system with people purposely submitting late because they know we'll actually sit here and read it. But that might require a little bit of careful thought and maybe a future amendment.
Councillor Gautreau.
I won't be supporting this amendment. 168, when I first read this, when 168 was here, I really liked it because that actually gave us a direction of no instead of, you know, can or shall or will or how. So this actually is very clear and said that no written submissions will be done. So I quite like that. I won't be supporting this amendment.
Councillor Wright.
So through to Mr. Hogan's point, until I think we make that amendment, I think this should be in there. We can always remove it once we start moving forward on the new way of doing things.
Councillor McKellar.
Thank you, through the chair. I also won't be supporting this. I'm probably one of the councillors that have changed my thinking on this. And I think I would rather change the amount of time people have to respond versus accepting late submissions. So, you know, I think if we're going to adjust anywhere, it should be on, you know, that window versus just having people being able to walk up and say, hey, here. I've also been changing my voting on allowing people to speak. And so, again, I think we need to do better at changing the amount of time people have, but not necessarily accepting late submissions. So I won't be supporting that for that reason.
Thank you. I'm going to reflect that as well. I think in the time that I've been a councillor, I've never seen as many requests to have late letters, late submissions, speak to council, and to answer Councillor Hansen's question, an easy way is say no. And here it is. So there's lots of time for people to send in their thoughts, and I think that it's an abuse of the system.
Yeah, I think you've convinced me. I think we're seeing a bit of abuse, a bit of the late gambit, as opposed to people just accidentally missing it because they weren't around.
Thank you. Councillor McKeiler.
Thank you. And I actually just want to add on, one point here is that we have seen instances where people have submitted on time and administration has not included those in the package, and that isn't a blame or a fault. Sometimes with the quantity of information that comes in, I absolutely expect that would happen from time to time. So the exception that I would make to this is if they should have actually been, they were received on time and they should have been included in the package. So if we want to, if we need to shift this motion, we could try to do that. Otherwise, we just recognize that would, for me, that would be the exception.
If I can, we don't need to. Staff, if they say that they have received these letters within the time, then council by resolution can accept them. The other thing that this will do, I believe, is get people to phone their councillors and say, can you represent me at council to ask this question or to work on a condition of my subdivision? Right now, everybody thinks that they should come here and it's usually the transportation offsite levy. Phone your councillor and ask them to represent you. That's how it's done. Anyway, Councillor Wright.
Through the Reeve, just to that point, and that's a valid point. Maybe that's an education piece as well, though, is just to, because I don't know if people just know that. And maybe to Mr. Bars, does our planning staff, do they let them know that they should call their counselor, or like, how does somebody, it's one of those things that if you're, like, so how are they supposed to find out? I think people often think that their counselor's there as a last resort, not to ask for something. I think it makes more sense for residents to think that they could come to council and speak as opposed to just having to call their counselor. I don't think that that's an intuitive maneuver. But just back over to the other points. It's not like, do we have people who chronically write late? Like, it's not the same offenders. We don't have repeat offenders. And I like to think of people as being better than just trying to bilk the system, and at the end, milk the system rather, or bulk the system, whichever way you want to look at it. But a late submission, we only have a very short amount of window to read when we get it anyway. And not only that, but we do live in the age of electronics, so all people have to do is start emailing us. So we either accept a late letter, or we're going to start getting bombarded by emails. So just points to think of.
Councillor McCullough. And I think we're going to limit debate here.
Yes, we have passed that. So I just want to actually address Councillor Wright's point, if I may. I think administration's role is to present the facts as the current bylaw. So if the transportation and the municipal, the MR is our bylaw, then that's what they should be advising. And what I try to do now, and certainly just as a point, if I see something that's on a subdivision that's coming where, I'll phone them and say, have you read the package, and do you have any questions, or is there anything that you don't understand that I can help with prior to? And if they say, oh, I don't like the transportation offsite, whatever, levy on the original parcel, I'll say, okay, what else? What else you got? And so it's just me reaching out. Again, I'm not bombarded with them by any means, but also they feel like they're being represented by their local councillor. That's my last point on that, because it's 10 to 10.
Okay. Call the question. All in favor? Councillor Camachi.
Opposed.
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 Opposed. Opposed.
In favor.
Opposed.
That failed. So number 37.
Actually, we're on amendment number 36. Amendment number 36 pertains to section 182 with respect to questions of clarification from members of administration and when they're allowed during the public hearing. So in our existing procedure bylaw, questions of clarification were technically not permitted at all. And so the rewriting, how we've rewritten it in the new procedure bylaw, it reflects how we currently practice. So my suggestion is leave it as is.
And yeah, I'm glad that everybody's happy with that, because that other system, if you get to ask questions right after administration, I guarantee it, you're going to ask the same question right after the applicant. So we'll move on to number 37.
So Amendment 37, this section only requires that the councillors are presented with the bylaw. So we're talking about some word changing. This is not a strict requirement as is provided in section 187 sub 2. So 187. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. So that administration be directed to amend section 189 sub 2 to read as be given or have had the opportunity to review the full text of the proposed bylaw before considering a motion for first reading of the bylaw. And how it's written is be presented in its entirety to all members. So it's just word clarity that Councillor Wright is requesting, and administration has no issues with her suggestion.
Good. Call the question. All in favor? Oh, you should probably read it.
That administration be directed to amend section 189.2 of bylaw C-7907-2019 to read as, quote, be given or have had the opportunity to review the full text of the proposed bylaw before considering a motion for first reading of the bylaw.
Thank you. All in favor? And Councillor Kamachi.
In favor.
In favor.
In favor?
Opposed?
In favor?
Opposed?
Opposed.
In favor.
In favor.
That is carried. I think we got the one we were looking for.
Amendment 38 is with respect to section 191. Section 191 states for bylaws that require a statutory public hearing, administration will provide an introduction to the proposed bylaw prior to consideration of first reading of the bylaw and prior to a public hearing for the proposed bylaw. The suggested motion that we have here is that it be amended that for bylaws that require a statutory public hearing, administration will provide an introduction to the proposed bylaw that is sufficient to assess the general merits of the proposal. So it's some word clarity, and administration has no issue with the suggested motion.
Go
for
ahead,
me to go?
Councillor Wright.
That section 191 of the proposed procedure bylaw be amended to read as, quote, for bylaws that require statutory public hearing, administration will provide an introduction to the proposed bylaw that is sufficient to assess the general merits of the proposal. That administration be directed, not direction, to identify and outline the definitions of bylaw readings in all notices and on the website for education purposes.
Just for clarity, this will, whatever information comes forward at first reading will be pertinent to the land use. If we were looking at land use, and they will not be subdivision items. Mr. Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Reid, members of council. Yes, the plan would be, for example, in a redesignation, that we would provide a cursory review of what the application, some of the basic details of the application itself. Council would then determine whether or not there was interest on council moving ahead with that past first reading. What first reading really is, and I don't want to confuse anybody who's listening with the language, but first reading is really the equivalent of Parliament tabling the legislation for the first time. It's not passing anything. It's not indicating council's desire to ram something through. It is merely the introduction of the legislation, and then from there, go to public hearing, find out what the public has to say. So yes, at the first reading, not only will you have a full text of the bylaw, but you'll also have a very cursory, brief overview of what that project may entail.
Councillor McCuller.
Thank you, through the chair. The only words I'm struggling with in this suggested motion, and again, because based on, almost 2 years with my peers here, is the words sufficient to assess the general merits. And I think that is very subjective. And what I need to assess the general merits is, I think, going to be substantially different than Councillor Hanson. That's not a dig to Councillor Hanson. I think he asks more detailed questions than I do. And so I don't know what that means. And so I worry that general direction back to administration, again, puts them on uneven footing as to what they should be supplying to us and how much detail.
Do you have a suggested amendment?
Okay.
Well, I'd like to just say no. Yeah.
Go ahead and think about it, and we'll take a question from Councillor Hanson.
Clarification through the chair to the administration. We don't have to pass first reading in the first meeting. I thought the first reading was to agree on the wording of the bylaw and any details and get it to the point where it's comfortable that we all understand what's going on. If there was not enough detail, we could probably send it back and ask for more detail before we pass first reading. Is that not correct?
Through the chair, to Councillor Hanson, that is correct. The council does not have to, you could table a motion, ask for more information, anything that made council comfortable with what was in front of them. If you did go first reading and it failed because you didn't have enough information, well then we're dead in the water. But if council wanted more information, that they didn't feel that there was introduction to the proposed bylaw that was sufficient to assess the general merits of the proposal, then you could say, listen, we need more information to sufficiently assess the general merits of the proposal.
Refer it back to administration, I believe, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Councillor McCullough, do you have an amendment?
You know what, I would just remove the word sufficient. You know, that the proposed bylaw, that is, introduction to the proposed bylaw to assess the general merits of the proposal. So, you know, I think for each one of us, that sufficient will be a little different.
Okay, did you get that, Tyler? Yep, that's it. Okay, pretty much.
I understand, sorry, through the Reeve.
Go ahead, Councillor Ray.
Through the Reeve to Councillor McCullough. I understand what you're saying. I don't think that is it, though. The sufficient word, and I apologize for even writing it. I think I got tired by that point. But we'll provide an introduction to the proposed bylaw to assess the general merit. Okay, yeah.
How about so that council can assess the general merits of the proposal?
Mr. Members of Council, at the risk at 10 o'clock at night of throwing cold water on this, first reading is really not assessing the merits of the proposal. That really is public hearing, second reading, debate, amendments, more information. You're presenting for the first time the legislation and setting a time and a date that this will be presented to the public, and the public will have their opportunity to weigh in on the proposal. So I would be nervous that assessing the general merits means there's going to be a fulsome discussion on the general merits on something that we have only provided you with a cursory overview. Again, I'll use the extreme example. If we came with a bylaw to redesignate for a nuclear waste facility in Bearspaw, the general merits, there would be not much discussion, but it would be discussed. And in actual fact, so I would suggest that we be very careful with assessing the general merits of the proposal, because that's what you do on third and final reading.
So a period right behind bylaw and move on?
Mr. Reeve and members of the council, that would be my suggestion, is that for bylaws that require statutory public hearing, administration will provide an introduction to the proposed bylaw.
Why did we get rid of that administration be directed to identify and outline the definitions of bylaw readings in all notices and on the website? Why did we eliminate that underneath it? It was part of the same. Are they not the same?
I think the first part of that motion, if I go back. So the first
You just went
section of that.
Oh,
Yeah,
we're not going to do it all as one? Sorry. Oh, the amendments.
yeah, these motions
my
we probably
God.
should have done separately, because the first motion is an amendment to the bylaw, and then the second motion is separate direction for us to modify our procedures. So we should probably deal with the first one first, to deal with the bylaw amendments, and then vote on the directions separately.
Okay, so Deputy Reeve Schul.
Well, I'm hearing all these possible changes. What's the problem with the original thing that Charlotte has put in? So I think we're just really getting tired and we're talking foolishness.
Well,
It-
we are,
it
I
is-
agree. Counselor Wright.
Through the Reeve, it was just to sort of, because if we're going back to change the way that we do first reading, it's sort of as I say here, before the public hearing is going to work as marketed, it should be changed to read, and again, we can eliminate the sufficient to assess. The complaints that we've heard in the past is that the way first reading was it, as soon as you got first reading, it was sort of approved. And also the other concerns I'd heard from previous counselors was that there wasn't sufficient information. So I'm just going based on that, and I just thought that that would cover off all bases. But it is 10 o'clock at night, so.
Counselor Gautreau.
Thank you, through the chair. I look at 191 on the current way that it's written from administration in our package. For bylaws that require a statutory public hearing, administration will provide an introduction that proposed bylaw prior to consideration of first reading of a bylaw that is prior to a public hearing for the proposal of the bylaw. Again, I refer to the CEO, Mr. Hogan. This is a first reading. They're just giving us information. It's like tabling. I see no issue with 191 the way it's written.
Thank you. We're going to call the question.
So I believe this is what's on the floor. It was Councillor McKeiler's amendment.
Yep. So we'll deal
we'll vote
with
on
that
that.
amendment first. All in favor? Boom. Counselor Comanche.
Opposed.
I'm opposed.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
In favor.
In favor.
Fails. So the original motion. All in favor? Okay, that one's gone. So I think we found the one we're looking for, right? That's the end of it. So now where is the,
Through the chair, we should probably just officially vote that one down.
okay, all in favor? That, what do I do? Like, if nobody's in favor, I guess it fails, right? I don't have to have a recorded vote. I haven't had that before. Usually some, Councillor Wright.
Sorry, there's a second part to that, though. That administration be directed to identify and outline the definitions.
Talking about the first one.
Sorry, I was trying to move.
Okay, so that fails. And the next one, could you read that?
Mr. Reeve, may I just could I suggest that the one that's about to be read is not really part of the procedural bylaw, but could we get a separate resolution of council to that end that will direct us to put it on the website? I don't know that this fits in the procedural bylaw. A separate resolution could be exactly the same thing, and that will give us direction to deal with website and other educational material outside of the procedural bylaw.
So for clarification, through the Reeve, you would like me to just remove this and then make a motion?
A standard pro forma resolution with this to direct us to do exactly what this says, and as opposed to it being included. This is really not a procedural bylaw question. We're happy to do it, but it would be better, I think, outside the bylaw.
Okay, so would that be a motion arising? Okay, if, Councillor Gautreau.
Thank you, through the chair. So I think since we were at the last one, I'd like to make motion 1, that bylaw C7907, 2019, as amended, be given first reading.
First reading, all in favor as amended? That is carried. Councillor Deputy Reeve Schul.
I'll make the second motion that bylaw C7907, 2019, as amended, be given second reading.
Second reading, all in favor? No? No? Okay, that is carried. Councillor Hanson.
I'd like to make a motion that bylaw C7907-2019, as amended, be considered for third reading.
Consideration of third, all in favor? And Councillor Gautreau.
That bylaw C7907, 2019, as amended, be given third reading.
Sorry, third reading as amended, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you and good job and persistence. This morning, K2 is, we pulled that from the agenda, is that right, Mr. Hogan?
A motion arising, I thought there was.
Oh, still,
There's a motion.
is there?
Yes, please.
Councillor Wright.
So the motion arising, please, that administration be directed, not direction, to identify and outline the definitions of bylaw readings in all notices and on the website for education purposes.
Councillor Gautreau.
Thank you. Through the chair, I believe they're doing that and they're posting it anyway, so people can read the agenda and find this out.
Call the question, all in favor? Recorded vote.
In favor.
Opposed.
In favor?
Opposed?
Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
In favor.
In favor.
And I believe that fails. Now, Mr. Hogan, did you say K2 was pulled from the agenda?
Yes, there was no K2.
Okay, good. I thank everyone. We need a motion to adjourn. I would just like to add one thing. I apologize that I got a little temperamental, especially to Councillor Wright. This was a long day and I got a little testy, and I apologize for my behavior. Deputy Reeve Schul.
I don't know if anybody else is interested in council reports, but I just wanted to thank the county for helping us with Langdon Days. I did much appreciate it. The staff were very supportive, very helpful. But I do want to say a couple more things. I wish everybody a nice holiday. But most of all, I would really like to, for myself anyway, apologize to Mr. Hogan for some of the comments that were said by one of the councillors. I think it was totally inappropriate, and the person knows who it is. So, thank you.
Councillor Kissel.
Through the Reeve, actually, I think the councillor should be allowed to apologize herself, and I would like to apologize to staff. It was not my intention, and I will go back and watch the video, because sometimes my words maybe are not quite as well stated as they should be, and so I do apologize if I have offended any one of you that are sitting here till 10:10 in the evening.
Thank you, and I think everybody's tired. I appreciate staff staying. Mr. Sherrick, thank you very much. Ms. Ballantyne, thank you. And to all the staff, enjoy the month without us. Probably just do backflips down the hall. And we need a Deputy Reeve Schul to make a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn. Thank you.
All in favor? We are adjourned.